So we study the effects of climate change on Arctic ecosystems. And actually in the Arctic, we're seeing some of the greatest rates of climate change of anywhere on the planet. The Arctic is warming at a much faster rate than the rest of the globe. And so actually in the Arctic, we're seeing some of the greatest impacts of climate change on Arctic ecosystems. And we're particularly interested in the effects of what we call extreme climatic events. So as part of climate change, we're seeing an increase in frequency of short-lived but very extreme weather conditions. And actually those extreme climatic events, as we call them, can actually cause damage and dieback to Arctic vegetation. So we see large-scale death of plants in tundra ecosystems, and that's what we've been doing a lot of study of in recent years. These extreme climatic events can be quite varied. There's a number of different types of events that can cause damage to Arctic plants. One of them, for instance, is called an extreme winter warming event. And in that event, we have a sudden warming of temperatures right in the middle of the Arctic winter. And that'll melt the snow, and it'll then warm up the plants that are exposed because they're no longer protected by snow. And that'll cause the plants to burst bud, to sort of go premature spring-like bud burst, but in the middle of winter. That bud burst process then causes them to lose their natural winter freeze tolerance. And so when that extreme warming event moves away and things return to the normal extremely cold temperatures of an Arctic winter, the plants don't have freeze tolerance and they basically get frozen to death. And there are other types of events. So one is called a frost drought event. So in the middle of winter, for instance, if you don't have a much deep snow cover, so the plant's leaves are actually exposed above the snow, and perhaps you have sunny days and maybe high wind speeds, the plants can actually lose water out of their leaves, a process called transpiration. But of course, their roots are still in frozen soil in the middle of winter. And so the leaves lose water, but the plants can't get at water because obviously a lot of plants are dying. It has important implications for other wildlife. So for instance, birds would usually, a number of birds would feed on the berries that would usually be produced by the plants when they're alive. And herbivores such as reindeer can rely on some of these plants for their food. And also, of course, many bits of the Arctic are populated by humans, and those people are relying on the Arctic landscape for their livelihoods. And so people like reindeer herders, for instance, can be directly affected by this large-scale dieback of vegetation. So we're studying those events and we're studying their impacts on the ecosystems and their consequences more widely for biodiversity and other organisms, and also for the impacts for the people that live in the Arctic.
Uncertain Awareness is inspired by The Garden of Early Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. In his work, there are two different paintings, an osaic one in the wing panels, which is the interpretation of the beginning of the universe, and a second one that appears as soon as the inner panels they are open, and is interpreted as the lost paradise or the end of the universe. For this project, I decided to do something similar, representing at larger scale an immersive painting, which could bring the beauty of the Arctic to people in an immersive way. And a second one, a brown one, that appears as soon as the visitor puts a device in front of the painting. Then the augmented reality recreates an animation that brings from the green to the brown one, showing the devastation due to climate change of our world. For the painting itself, I got a lot of inspiration from the 19th century Romantic Norwegian painters, as they worked a lot with the Lofoten Islands, and that helped me to understand the properties of the place and how nature works there in the visual eye of a painter. Because of the COVID-19 outbreak, we decided to also allow everyone to have the painting in their houses in case they can go to the gallery. So everyone that has a device, an Android or iOS, they are going to be able to download the app and see the painting in their living rooms.